What if I told you that I could prove that the world you live in is actually a simulation? But that simulation wasn't created by aliens or the government or AI. It was made by something far more realistic. Well, guess what? Mr. Shoes. Hello and welcome to Rewrite Reality, a show about the science and technology of self-improvement. I am your host, Mr. Shores, and my goal for this video is simply to teach you something new. This video is what I call a smooth brain explanation, so the goal here is to break this down without using any big scary words. Alright, let's get to it. If you've made it this far in life, you've probably heard someone say something to the effect of, "We live in a simulation," or "Life isn't real." In my experience, they're usually making a reference to a certain work of fiction where everyone wears leather jackets and dodges bullets, but I mean the overall sentiment isn't actually wrong. As of right now, you are actually living inside of a simulation, but it's one that you have created. And I don't mean that as a figure of speech or a metaphor, I mean you are literally creating the simulation right now. One of the first things that you really need to understand if you're trying to make changes in your life is that you don't live in reality. You live in your understanding of reality. Now, I'll admit that sounds like one of those quotes that you would see on like a terrible Facebook meme next to a picture of a sunset, so let's take a step back and unpack that. Now, if you don't study neuroscience, all of this probably sounds extremely made up, so let's do something to make it seem a bit more real. One of the easiest ways to explain this is with vision. So let's play a game. Wherever you are, I want you to take a look around at your environment. Look straight ahead. Now look to your right. Now look behind you. Now look to your left. Everything probably looks pretty normal because I haven't done anything yet. Now I want you to close your left eye and do the same thing. Look in front of you, to your right, behind you, and to your left. Now one more time, but this time close your right eye. Look in front of you, to your right, behind you, and to your left. Chances are when you looked around all three times, your surroundings look more or less the same. Sure, your field of view is a little bit smaller given the fact that you closed an eye, but overall the picture didn't look too different, right? There weren't any like drastic changes or anything. Well, if the two times you looked around with one of your eyes closed look more or less the same as when you looked around with both eyes, guess what? You don't live in the real world, which according to Google means you're delusional. Congratulations. Now you're probably wondering how closing one eye proves that you don't actually live in reality. Well, the reason is that each one of your individual eyes has a blind spot. Now, I'm not talking about the type of blind spot that you see in like anime and movies where the guy like teleports behind you. I'm talking about a blind spot in your actual field of vision. Due to the anatomy of your eyeballs, if you close one eye, there is a spot that the open eye physically cannot see near the middle of its field of view. And that's true whether you realize and accept it or not. When both eyes are open, the blind spot of your left eye falls into what the right eye can see, so it doesn't really matter. And of course, vice versa. However, with one eye closed, you quite literally are not getting the full picture. If you don't believe me, allow me to try and show you. This is probably going to be easiest if you're on a phone, but if you're watching this on a larger screen like a TV, there's no harm in trying. You just might look a little weird. Here's a picture of a cross and a mouse. I want you to close your left eye and hold this image as close as possible to your open right eye. Now, stare directly at the cross and don't break eye contact with it. Now I want you to slowly move further and further away from the screen. At some point, the object to the right of this cross is going to disappear, and the only thing that you're going to see is the white background. Here, I'll give you a second to pause the video and try this a few times. Congratulations, you found your blind spot. Leave a comment if it actually disappeared for you. Now you may be wondering why I brought any of this up. Well, to me, the most important part of this whole thing isn't necessarily that there's a dead zone in the middle of your eye, because clearly not being able to see a few cubic centimeters in front of you doesn't cause people too many problems. Rather, it's how casually your brain smooths over this dead zone. Without having someone, like myself, to explain that this blind spot exists, most people probably would never even realize on their own. And so I encourage you to look at your life and ask the question, What other blind spots do you have in your life? In what kinds of situations do you find yourself glossing over details for the sake of convenience? As we just saw, your brain has a tendency to gloss over details it doesn't have, so it's important for you to reevaluate every once in a while to make sure you aren't missing anything critically important. However, if you're a human being, chances are you probably have a few blind spots in your life. I certainly did. An easy example for me is how I used to have absolutely no concern whatsoever for my appearance. Look at this. This is arguably the worst picture of me that has ever been taken, period. Was I going through a lot then? Yes, but that's still no excuse for this fit. Like, oh my. Oh, boy. Now, it might sound small in the grand scheme of things, but going around looking like this really had a drastic impact on how I lived my life. You know, there were times where it really prevented me from getting to the outcomes that I wanted in life. And that, in turn, had effects on my state of mind and mental health. It wasn't until I really took a look in the mirror, literally, that I was really able to understand this part of my life that I was neglecting for the sake of convenience. But now look at your boy. I wear suits. But in all seriousness, the first step to making any real change in your life is the ability to take an honest look at yourself and understand where your gaps are. Now, I mean, trying to fix them all is borderline impossible. But at the very least, understanding what they are at least gives you more insight as to where you might need to be a little more cautious or a little more patient. As I said at the beginning, you don't live in reality, you live in your understanding of reality. So work hard to make sure that your understanding is as close to the real deal as possible. Stay blessed. If you're curious about how any of this is actually possible, subscribe to the channel to make sure that you're notified when the Galaxy Brain version of this video is released. In that video, I'll be going over the exact same information but with more detail about the underlying science. As of right now, I'm doing this entire show by myself. I wrote the music, I do the art, the animation, the research, all of it. So your support and feedback help me to build the channel. Thank you.